Okay. All right. So I'm super excited for episode number 2. I have here Natalie Boehm from the Defeating Epilepsy Foundation. And I'm super excited to learn more about the work that she's doing in terms of advocacy and things like that. So thank you, Natalie, for joining me. Sorry I was a little bit late. Um, just dealing with the usual chaos with children, family, life. So
No,
thank
thank
you.
you for having me, Jacob. I'm really honored to be here, and no worries. I have kids of my own, so I know very much what that chaos can be like.
Wonderful. What a breath of fresh air. All right, awesome. So first off, I just wanted to ask you a general question. I feel like I'm going to get like macro to micro in terms of questions. Can you describe your experience or your relationship with a disability?
Well, it has been very frustrating in my life because I think the biggest thing, many people doubted that I could achieve any level of success having a disability, even though epilepsy is the fourth most common neurological disorder. It's one of the most underfunded and it's highly stigmatized. So the lack of education really puts up a lot of barriers for people with epilepsy. And it took a long time to convince families, my colleagues and other people that despite having this condition, I was capable of being a productive person in society, that I could take care of myself. And I just realized in this, life is too short to allow people to label me due to a condition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Life definitely is short. And can you give, just for the audience and just for in terms of general education purposes, can you just give me like a one or two sentence in terms of what is epilepsy?
Epilepsy is a neurological disorder which results in people having seizures. And there are 3.4 million people in America now who are battling epilepsy.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Um, and in terms of epilepsy and just your journey, how did you get started in your field? Like with epilepsy, advocacy, research, all that.
Well, after a number of years of being quiet about, hiding who I was, I realized, not enough work is being done for the community. So I went back and I got my MBA and started creating my foundation. And I launched it, and mainly my mission is to provide the advocacy and educational services that the community needs, and not even just community, but society in general.
Okay. And I like what you said about just in terms of like awareness and education. I think there's epilepsy, along with many other disabilities or just disabilities in general, there's a lack of education, like a lack of general knowledge. So I feel like that's a lot of what brings on like the stigma or the taboo. Like people don't want to talk about it. Well, I
Oh,
think that goes with,
absolutely.
yeah, and like I think that goes with a lot of things. Like people don't want to talk about something because A, they haven't experienced firsthand, or B, they just don't know anything about it. So
No, it's very true. And what's ironic about it is I've been dealing with epilepsy for 40 years now. And even doing my research now, preparing educational information with my team, I'm finding there's things I didn't even know about epilepsy. There's just so much information out there that has not been made to the public.
absolutely. Well, and I imagine with any disability or disease disorder, it's ongoing, right? There's always
Yes.
new research, new studies, clinical based research, trials, things like that. So yeah, I feel like it's an ongoing um, educational experience.
Yes, it is.
Can you tell me about any or among many like challenges, ongoing roadblocks, any wins that you've experienced? I'd love to hear about those.
I think one of the biggest challenges is maintaining my health. This fall, not far after I launched, I actually got COVID and then got into bacterial infection on top of it. I went to the hospital and they didn't take me seriously and ended up very sick from it. And the biggest thing was trying to stay focused on my work, stay focused on completing my mission was one of the very difficult things to do this fall, but it was also beneficial because it made me set goals, and seeing my foundation already growing at the level it is and having my team and others encourage me, I knew I could get past it, and I couldn't allow it to stop me from anything I've had to do.
I love your perseverance. Um, I'm curious in terms, because you mentioned you had COVID. Um, I mean, I can't fathom the symptoms and just the uphill battle you experienced, but how did it affect your epilepsy, if it did?
Yeah. No, actually it did. The biggest thing I had was it really increased my level of cognitive impairment. The kind of seizures I've had when I was younger started in my temporal lobe. They started as focal seizures and then turned into tonic-clonic. It's known as oh geez, of course I can't remember the name of it now. Bilateral tonic-clonics are called. And a lot of what the problem is because I've had seizures taking place in the temporal lobe, they cause tissue atrophy, hardening of the tissue, and scarring to the hippocampus, which is responsible for our concentration and thinking. When I got COVID and the infection, it increased it to such levels. I'm also a research assistant. I sat down with my data one night when I was working on a current project I'm on, opened the APA template to do the outline for my research paper, and I literally didn't know how to fill the template out. And this is something I've done for years. And when I couldn't sit down and write a basic paper, I knew something was seriously wrong.
Wow. So yeah, it definitely affects like there was a cognitive impairment. It affects memory retrieval, things
Oh
like
yeah.
wow.
That and also my heart. I've never had heart arrhythmia in my life, and I did during these a good month on and off. So if there's anything I could say to not even just people battling disability, but even able-bodied, this is not something to think of as a hoax or a joke, or it really is a very serious thing that as a society we really need to seriously take the proper precautions.
Right. And not to get too much into that conversation, but I feel like um, I feel like this pandemic, this virus has like created such a division, not just in our nation, but in the world. Um,
Yes.
and then it's like, you know, you read about the percentages, the people that want to take the vaccine and this and that. And then what happens? People get the virus. The people that, you know, were against it, they get the virus, and then you see all the stuff in the media and the social media, you know, making pleas, and it's like, yeah, it's a really difficult situation for everybody, and that's the thing with whether it's COVID or a disability. I feel like a disability, and that's what I want to do on this podcast, is create awareness, because, and not just with people with disabilities, because as I'm sure you're aware, a disability, it's like there's direct and indirect disabilities.
Yes.
Like I have a disability, you have a disability, but there's like a disability. Helping a person with a disability like takes a village,
Yes, it does.
right? I'm also a special education teacher, so like I understand it literally takes a village with like PT, OT, social workers, speech language pathologists, the list goes on and on, the parents. So that's what I also want to do, is interview people that are affected by people with disabilities, the parents, um, you know, anyone that's on like that team involved with the person with a disability, because everybody has a different perspective, you know.
Well, they do. And the thing is, along with having a disability myself, both my sons have a bleeding condition called hemophilia, which is they have a factor VIII deficiency. They don't make enough to help their blood clot. And what's so frustrating, their condition, only 20,000 Americans are affected by it, 200,000 worldwide. And the medication for it is known as an orphan drug. So this is a very rare condition, costs a lot of money to treat. And because of such a lack of awareness, trying to educate society about a condition like this, it's been an ongoing battle. I feel like when it comes to the schools, when it comes to the doctors, I feel at times I've had to turn into a pit bull. I mean, getting ready to go full force to advocate for my sons to show they deserve to have a good education. I've had to educate myself on FAPE and the IDEA Act and IEPs because of we had a vice principal discriminating against my oldest and having to consult with attorneys and meeting with superintendents. I think a lot of people, it's very rare for somebody to be able to have the view of a patient and parent perspective, and I'm very lucky too. It really helps me with advocating. But we really have to do what we can to push for awareness and education so that these families don't feel isolated. So these people who are dealing with disabilities don't feel isolated, because at this time, there is no reason for isolation.
Right. I totally agree. I also feel like there definitely needs to be way more advocacy at the K through 12 level. I think it also goes back, like even with, like just the general education staff, whether it's like the principal or, positions of that nature. I don't feel like they always are trained in special education. Like they
They
go to
really
school for,
aren't.
they're not. They go to school for like leadership roles and general ed, which is great. And they take like a class in special education because they have to. But that doesn't even like, I don't know, doesn't even scratch the surface.
Well, it doesn't. And I think even people in these administrative roles really don't understand the laws they're abiding by. And what really concerns me that I've seen being in higher education myself is as these students leave the K-12 program, they're used to having those protections. And then when they go to college, they don't realize those protections are going away. We have the American with Disabilities Act, but the IDEA Act, FAPE, those things don't carry over. And to get the requirements they need, to get the accommodations they need, they're jumping through hoops. And a lot of these disability directors at these universities are not special. They're not social workers. They're not trained in any type of disability, learning about certain illnesses. It's pretty much they go through the paperwork, and based on their own experience, should they accommodate these students. And I've had I'm in a disability club for the university at the University of Redlands, where I did my master's. And one of the students came to me frustrated because the disability director was like, well, pick an illness, because she has many. And she's like, I just can't pick one. And she's like, I have all these things going on. And the director literally said to her, well, maybe someone like you shouldn't be in college. And those are the things I'm advocating against, because, and the frustrating thing is I have found in my advocacy with my profession as a social entrepreneur, talking to other entrepreneurs, I have to put in the perspective of money. I'll say, okay, there are 3.4 million people in this country battling epilepsy. 70% can control it with seizures, yet so many of them end up on disability because of employment discrimination. I go, if we could remove the stigma, take the discrimination away, and help them find gainful employment, whether it's through learning a trade, going on to college, helping them start a business. I said, think of the economic growth. Think what we could do for communities in our society. The moment I put it into numbers, they go, wow, I never thought about that. That's great. And I'm thinking, I shouldn't have to bring money into the situation. These are human beings.
right. At the same time, we live in the US, like, I
Yes.
mean, that's a terrible way to put it, but like, that's what a lot of people see, you know. I totally agree. I mean, like I do career coaching, and I specifically am pivoting to help job seekers with disabilities because like with firsthand experience, I mean, I've had a very rough ride with my career, but at the same time, I've also, I don't know, I kind of like have learned about a way more about entrepreneurship than any class has ever taught me. Because it's entrepreneurship is like, there's a great analogy. I want to say it was Richard Branson, CEO of Virgin, but I can't remember who it was. But he's like, entrepreneurship is like jumping out of an airplane and building a parachute on the way down.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what it's like. And I love the analogy because like what I also love, I mean, I'm not saying I'm an entrepreneur. I'd say I have many side hustles, which is a huge difference. But I love that like it's completely outside the box. Like when you're an entrepreneur, or you're doing like side hustles, like there is no box. You know, you're not like an employee and it's like super rigid. You have to you have to create solutions. There are no
Oh,
plans.
absolutely. You have to be willing, not even just to critically think, but I have found in my journey in creating my foundation, you have to be ready to step outside of your comfort zone. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of others, because if you can't take that step, you're not moving forward. If you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to experience something you've never experienced before, you really won't know what steps to take. And even myself, I mean, my background for my capstone was in strategic management, and I had to learn how to forecast and put plans together, research and development. You still make mistakes along the way, no matter how many times you do it. And when you hit that bump in the road, you have to be willing to say, okay, where can we go now? What are our options? If the moment you hit that bump and you panic it, you're setting yourself up for failure if you can't see that there's other routes, there's other roads to go down.
Right. So you touched on the word that you were kind of skating around it. You were talking about like making mistakes and this and that. And I was
Yeah.
waiting for you to say failure because in, running your own business or entrepreneurship, they're like, oh, I can't fail, or I failed, I give up, blah, blah. But what I've discovered is that failure is simply a main ingredient to success. Nobody, like all the successful entrepreneurs, the Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, things like that, nobody talks about the numerous failures and now they're successful. They just put the failures on center, or I'm sorry, the successes on center stage.
Oh, it's true. And I think it was Gordon Ramsay, I believe, had a number of restaurants that failed before he had great success, before we even had the show Hell's Kitchen. And he talked about what it took for him, how much he had to bust his butt, and mistakes he made along the way and things he did before he really figured out, how to keep things going.
And another thing I realized, I mentioned Richard Branson with that quote. He has dyslexia. There's a tremendous amount of successful entrepreneurs that have disabilities. They just don't come out with their disability until they get interviewed, like, oh, you're so successful, blah, blah, blah. And then we find out they also happen to have a disability. So I think it's super interesting that, like, I always have this quote that, like, I say that a disability is not an inability to do something. In fact, it is an opportunity, or I see it as an opportunity to go an alternate path to arrive at a different or new solution.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even though I'm labeled as disabled because of my condition, I really don't consider myself a disabled human being. I look at, things that other people may be able to do, other professions they may be able to go in that I don't qualify for, but just because I can't take that route doesn't mean there's not a route for me. And I'm hoping with the mission I'm following with my foundation, I can show other people with epilepsy that I think the frustration begins the hardest for people when they first have it as children, because the attitude is, oh, you're just going to go through school, then you're going to go on SSI, because who would hire you? It was pretty much the attitude I got. Who would hire you? How will you get through school? And I want to, from the very beginning, show people that that's not the situation. We really do have potential, but we have potential in a different way depending on the severity of our condition.
Absolutely. I have to send you this group that I belong to. It's basically a group of entrepreneurs with disabilities. Like it's nothing but entrepreneurs with disabilities. It's a few groups actually. Super inspiring, and they're from all over the world. It's not
Oh,
just the US.
awesome.
It's a meetup group, like meetup.com. They have all these free groups. And they have a weekly group, and the stories I hear from them, I mean, my God, like I met one of them who is who became blind, and he decided to do something about it. So he's creating a piece of like eyewear technology for him to see, like
Oh,
kind of
how
like
awesome.
yeah, like Google Glass, but he's creating his own technology because he's experiences firsthand every day. And just the stuff that he's coming up with, and all these entrepreneurs, they just like they build their own path. Like if
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
roadblock, that's nice. They'll just build something else, or they'll build a ramp to go over it, or they'll build like I'm creating these cheesy analogies, but like it works. It makes sense.
Oh, it does, or else you're going to hit a wall if you're not willing to make those pass or go, or you, like you said, go over it. You're going to hit the wall and you're going to stay there. And I'm sorry, but in this day and age, we can't afford to stay there anymore. I mean, look how hard it is to really live in America now. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
disabled, there are so many people who are in disability who have no choice but to be with family. I think it's one of the biggest reasons I fought former neurologist I had pressured me greatly to go on disability. And I realized, well, my family can't take care of me. And I don't want to end up in a group home or assisted living home living off the taxpayers. So I can't just assume that, okay, I'm going to go on disability, get my check, and like that's just what life's going to be. I realize,
Okay. Whereas,
yeah,
um, yeah, you kind of froze a little bit, but
yeah,
I think that I love what you were saying, just about like entrepreneurship and the fact that what the sacrifice you had to make for your family, and things like that. That's very inspiring and very real, very raw and
yeah.
very real. One last question I want to ask. I think it's sort of an interesting take, to give to the audience is if you could create a bumper sticker and put on like a message to the world or the rest of the world, the disabled community or the rest of the typical development, what would it say? Like what message would you want to leave to people?
I would want to leave. I don't know if I could specifically say what I would put on a bumper sticker, but I would want to emphasize, life is too short to be upset, stewing in why did this happen to me or how am I supposed to deal with this? I wake up every day and I realize with my condition, I could go to sleep and die of SUDEP. I could have a seizure in my sleep and die, or something could just happen. But I'm not going to live in fear going, oh, I might have a seizure and die, or, oh, I can't do that. I'm here. So why I'm here, it's like, why not live it to the fullest? Why not do something? I mean, I am right now, I finished my master's and I'm doing some specialized certifications. And my goal in the next 3 to 4 years to start my doctorate. I mean, I've gone pretty far compared to most people with my condition, but I always challenge myself. I challenge myself to learn something new every day. I challenge myself to experience things. I challenge myself to be, the best parent I can be and set a positive example for my kids, because really the way I look at it is my kids are looking up to me. And if I keep saying I can't do because of this, with them having, their condition, eventually they're going to say to me, well, I can't do, I can't. And I don't want that. I want my sons to see, they have potential. They're in my mind, they're not disabled. They're challenged. They have to be responsible. They can't be acting reckless, but at the end of the day, they can do something productive with their life. They can contribute to society somehow. And I hope other people with disabilities find the strength and the confidence to say the same thing and not to allow other people's negativity or put down or doubts stop them. Take those lemons and turn them into lemonade and forget about what those people think or what they say. You take care of you.
I love it. I love it. And I totally agree that, you're doing what you have to do, for your family and also being a role model for your children. So I would say that for a bumper sticker, something could be like living with no fear,
Oh, I love it. I
right?
love
Short and
that.
sweet. I love what you
Yes,
said. It's elaborate and it makes sense. Bumper sticker, living without fear.
I love that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, that just about wraps it up. Once again, I have Natalie Boehm from the Defeating Epilepsy Foundation. Natalie, this was a wonderful conversation. I'm very grateful for your time. And if there's anything I can do to help you and your organization, I'm happy to spread the word about your organization within my LinkedIn community. I have a Facebook community. But like I said, I'm all about giving. So if you need anything, I definitely want to send you those two disability entrepreneur organizations. They're awesome. And yeah, let's just keep in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. And I really appreciate the fact that you're ready to help us spread the word, because that's going to be the first step to really helping make a difference in defeating epilepsy and helping the next generation get better care, better opportunities in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Natalie, this is Jacob Levy from Podabilities, completing the episode number 2, signing out. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.